Hello, I'm Richard Madeley, and I'm here to tell you, it's my pleasure to tell you about my second novel. Here it is, The Way You Look Tonight, hot off the presses. I should emphasise that it's a completely standalone story, but it does follow on to some extent from my first novel, because Stella, who is the central character here, emerges at the end of the first novel as a 10-year-old girl, and she, without giving anything away if you haven't read it yet, or you're planning to, she encounters a very unpleasant situation at 10 years old, almost life-threatening. And the way she deals with it is astonishing. She's so brave and feisty, and she keeps it together. And a lot of people who read the first book said, what happens to Stella when she grows up? She's such a fascinating kid. You know, what does she turn into? What does she become? We want to know. So I thought, okay, give people what they want. And I wanted to know too, actually. I wanted to find out what happened to her, because I loved Stella. I based her a little bit on my own daughter, Chloe. When the book opens, we find Stella on a propeller-driven aircraft, because it's 1962, and although there were jets around then, there were still a lot of old prop planes, four-engine prop planes, crossing the Atlantic, and she's on one of them. It's her first flight. She's really nervous, and the reason she's going to Boston, in Massachusetts, is because she's going to read a doctorate in psychopaths. She's just got a double first from Cambridge in psychology, but she's fascinated by psychopaths, and the reason for that is her own father was one. He's long dead, but she knows now, she's known since she was a teenager. And like most of us who would receive that piece of information, we might wonder if we ourselves could inherit some of those traits, and she's worried about that, and it's a case of know thine enemy. Anyway, she's on her way to Smith, and there she's going to be lodging for a while with two lecturers. It's a wonderful family called the Rockfairs. I love that, the Rockfairs. There's Jeb, who's an extremely personable lecturer at Smith, and his wife Dorothy, and their daughter Sylvia, who's roughly the same age as Stella is, a little bit younger. And here's the kind of the plot twist here. The Rockfairs know the Kennedys, because Professor Rockfair is a lecturer in history and politics, and he's actually helped write some of JFK's speeches for the 1960 election campaign. So he knows him, and he likes him, and Kennedy likes the Rockfairs, and they've become quite friendly. And we see Stella reading an old Blue Airmail letter on the flight, and there the Rockfairs are telling her that Sunday, 3 or 4 days hence, they're going to go to a beach barbecue in Martha's Vineyard, because it's still the summer, and she's going to meet JFK and Jackie and Bobby Kennedy and his wife Ethel and their kids. This big private beach barbecue. She can't believe it. She can't believe she's going to be mixing with the most powerful men on the planet, as they really were back in 1962, and indeed the most glamorous. I mean, the Kennedys were, you know, shiny. When she meets the Kennedys, which she does, and she holds her own, they ask her what she's doing there, and she explains that she's studying psychopaths, and she already knows a great deal about them. She's almost sort of, even despite her youth, she's kind of a leading expert in the UK and Europe on them. She's been to a lot of conferences. She's written a lot of papers on them as part of her psychology degree. She knows a lot about this new field. And when the Kennedys discover this, they're fascinated by this, and they have a long conversation with her. She describes the way psychopaths behave and what makes a psychopath. They confide in her that they've got a problem. Down in the Florida Keys, 1,500 miles south, the sweltering Florida Keys, there's a serial killer on the loose. He's been murdering attractive young women. He tortures them to death at the dead of night and leaves their bodies to be found. He wants their bodies to be found. And he's killed 4 in 3 weeks. He's prolific. And at the rate he's going, as one of the Kennedys says to Stella, they'll be in double figures by Thanksgiving. So they want her to go down there with her expertise to affiliate herself to the FBI investigation as fast as possible, because this killer is causing big problems in Florida. She gets to Key Largo, where she meets Lee, who's the young FBI case officer who's running the case. Brilliant case officer. He's something of an expert in serial killers. He's nailed 4 already, and he's not yet 30. He realises that this girl really knows her stuff and could be very useful to him. And so this becomes the story, the hunt for the killer, and the killer's own story. He gets his own chapters. We see how he thinks. We kind of see how he became the way he became, and we see how phenomenally dangerous he is, because he's clever. He's clever and he's quick, and he's going to be very, very hard to catch.